I remember it was a snowy January afternoon when my husband and I left the hospital, and the feeling of looking back at the two empty car seats. This wasn't how I imagined coming home as a first time mom. At 7 months, I'd gone in for a routine ultrasound and I didn't leave. I needed blood transfusions, and one of our twins' umbilical cords was constricted. Over the next couple months, we went through a lot of spaces: the antenatal ward, hematology, labor and delivery, the operating room, and finally the newborn intensive care unit. The clinicians were exceptional, and Maya and Zari did eventually make it home, but it felt like the spaces almost cast a shadow on the care we received. My labor room had 7 different types of trash cans, but nowhere for my husband to sleep. My first experience of motherhood wasn't holding my babies in my arms, but reaching through the holes of an incubator to try and feel them breathing. And then in the NICU, we were usually the only parents there. We'd pull up chairs to hold our girls, but the other babies lay alone in their cots. Their parents lived too far away, and the unit wasn't designed to accommodate families beyond short visits. As a designer, I'd been taught that design is never neutral. It either helps or it hurts. And nowhere have I seen that to be more true than in maternal and newborn health. Across the world, childbirth spaces are meant to save lives, but they're not often set up to honor them, which is wild when you think about it, because birth is not just a medical event. It's how families begin. It's not just a women's issue. It's the most universal human experience. We are all born. And it shapes not only our first breath, but our lifelong health. But the quality of that experience depends dramatically on who you are and where you live. Every year, 300,000 mothers and 2.4 million newborns die, mostly from preventable causes. In the US, 50% of women describe their births as traumatic, and in many parts of the world, that burden is even greater. Yet when we talk about improving health, there's often a piece missing. We focus on staff, supplies, and systems, but rarely on space. Across settings, I've seen how the built environment shapes 3 things: access, whether families can reach the right care in the right place; outcomes, the quality of care that they receive; and dignity, whether they feel seen, safe, and centered. What if we treated space as an active lever for health and healing? Access isn't just about transportation. It's about whether people can reach care in every sense: physically, emotionally, and socially. In Malawi, for example, the train makes it really hard for pregnant women to reach hospitals in time. The government had built maternity waiting homes for high-risk mothers to stay near care, but they were dark, crowded dormitories with 36 women crowded into a single room. So it wasn't surprising that few wanted to come or to stay. So we asked, what if waiting could be positive, even empowering? And how could it be more like home? We redesigned it as a village with small houses, courtyards, room for companions, cooking, and community. And when we spoke with 600 women, they told us their experiences were dramatically different. Satisfaction had risen not because the medicine changed, but because space expanded what care could mean. And access isn't just a Global South issue. In the US, over a third of counties are maternity care deserts, meaning less prenatal care, worse maternal health overall, and more preterm births. And some hospitals are now introducing early labor lounges, spaces that support families even beyond admission. Even when people do reach care, space directly shapes outcomes. So take postpartum hemorrhage, one of the leading causes of maternal death worldwide. And in many facilities, like this one in Kenya, rooms are not set up for providers to move quickly around a bed or reach supplies in an emergency. So what would it look like for doctors and nurses and midwives to provide quality care not in spite of their spaces, but because of them? Quality doesn't necessarily mean more intervention. Here in the US, laboring mothers are amongst the healthiest patients in a hospital, yet they're often treated in environments designed for the sickest. C-section rates range from 7 to 70%, depending not on a person's medical background, but the facility they walk into, and nearly half may be avoidable. Working with our Yadi labs, we found clear links between facility design and clinical decisions. So units with longer distances between key areas, fewer collaboration spaces, and environments that discouraged movement during labor all had more surgeries. You can almost predict C-section rates just by looking at floor plans because space reveals whether childbirth is treated as a medical procedure or a natural human process. And then there's dignity, the foundation of both access and outcomes. Privacy, space for family, a sense of belonging. These may not sound like innovation, but they make all the difference between trauma and trust. And culture and community matter too. In Ethiopia, where facility-based births remain low, we learned that having space for traditional coffee ceremonies matters more to families than even access to emergency transport. So this communal ritual of roasting and brewing and sharing coffee is a bridge between culture and care. So we integrated coffee ceremony spaces into our hospital designs to encourage families to come and to stay through that critical postpartum period. Sometimes dignity means creating space for other forms of healing. In Oklahoma, we heard from mothers who had lost babies in childbirth. And one told me, any memory you have with your child will be in that place. All I wanted was to take my baby outside, to feel the sun and wind on her face before saying goodbye. I didn't want her only time on earth to be in a hospital room. Giving grieving families a place to say goodbye, to feel sunlight, to be together, that is dignifying work. My baby survived. I was so grateful for the extraordinary care we received, and yet something still felt missing. To save my maternity leave, I was actually working on the evaluation of the maternity waiting village from my hospital room. And I remember pulling up that overbed table and looking at these photos of women gathered around the courtyard, cooking, singing, preparing for motherhood together, and feeling a strange mix of guilt for what I had and longing for what they had. Here I was with the best care in the world, but alone. And that experience taught me something profound. Gratitude and purpose can coexist. We can celebrate the strides we've made while pushing for what we know we deserve. So let's return to the question I asked earlier. What if we treated space as a lever for health and healing? The good news is that lever is already in motion. Today, Mass's maternal and newborn health work is not just a collection of projects, it's part of a movement. We've rallied a global community asking the same question: how can we design spaces that save lives and honor life? This year, we launched the Maternal Newborn Health Lab. Here in the US, we're designing BIPOC-led birth centers, including Neighborhood Birth Center in Roxbury and Breath of My Heart Birthplace in New Mexico, to expand access to culturally grounded midwifery care and reimagine birth for Black, Brown, Native, and rural communities. Globally, we're partnering with the Beginnings Fund to strengthen and scale maternal newborn infrastructure across 5 African countries. And with the Institute for Healthcare Improvement, we're expanding our Delivering More toolkit, including design principles for safer postpartum hemorrhage care, as well as a family-centered model called Zero Separation, which keeps parents and babies together in the NICU. This approach has been shown to save lives and improve outcomes for both mothers and newborns. And I can't help but wish I'd had that when our daughters were born. Our experience would have been completely different. I know the statistics can feel overwhelming. But what gives me hope is that everywhere I go, I see families advocating for greater choice and control, midwives sketching floor plans, funders committing to scale models of care, communities challenging the spaces they've inherited. The labor of birth is not only physical, it is emotional, collective, it's societal. And when we design with intention, we expand our definition of care. We expand access and improve outcomes. We center dignity and agency for birthing people to shape care on their own terms. We bring staff, stuff, systems, and space into balance. If we want to transform health, we must transform the spaces where it begins. Thank you.